So what is going on, guys? I'm Black Ops Amazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we are back with a Zombies Q&A, the series, you know, where I take your questions from the comment section below to do with the zombie storyline, Easter eggs, and I answer them. As always, if there's anything you want to know, drop it in the comment section below. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Drop a like rated if you enjoy. But let's get into this. Here we go, and enjoy. So the first question of the day is from Kane, and you say, did the One eat Dr. Monty since he has his powers? Now, there are many theories as to who the One or the Forsaken could actually be. Some people think that he could be Dr. Monty, he could be the Shadow Man, both of them combined. He is just a random Elder God within the Dark Aether that became all powerful. Since we haven't actually seen what he looks like for ourselves and the fact that he can change his appearance, there is no concrete evidence to say this is 100% who the Forsaken is. Right now it's all theory. And I say this because, just going back to the question you're asking me, did the One eat Dr. Monty? Well, this is a valid question because we know one of the Forsaken's powers is he can change his appearance, and it's believed he gained this power by consuming another Elder God. Every time the Forsaken eats an Elder God, it takes their powers. So we know that Dr. Monty was a shapeshifter. We also know that the Shadow Man was a shapeshifter. At the end of Black Ops 4, Dr. Monty was banished to the Dark Aether. We don't know about the Shadow Man. There is a chance he could have as well, but there is also a chance that the Shadow Man is dead. He was inside of the summoning key in Tagdo-Toten, which got destroyed. So what that meant for the Shadow Man's soul, we don't really know. Either it got destroyed along with it, or ended up going to the Dark Aether. But what we do know is Dr. Monty was sent to the Dark Aether. So if the One gained his shape-shifting ability by consuming another Elder God that had these powers, could Dr. Monty be the person that the One ate? Well, let's just go ahead and take a look at some documents we can find in Cold War. These are all from Zykov, who we know is a character that is trapped within the Dark Aether. He has been in there for 40 years at this point, ever since the end of World War II. So as you'd imagine, he has witnessed many things. He's come across other people, other Elder Gods, and the Forsaken. He's seen it for himself. So he is the best person to give us a description of the Forsaken, and he started off on day 4513 by saying this: since my arrival here, I have gradually come to understand that there is a balance of power among the creatures of this realm. While most of us are consumed with day-to-day survival, the ones at the top of the food chain gather armies of followers and vie for supremacy. These are huge, obscenely powerful entities. I believe their competition goes back eons, but there is one of these Elder Gods I fear above the rest. Should it gain enough power, it will reign supreme and look for fresh conquests, and if it becomes aware of my homeland, they will be too busy competing with the West to notice the real danger. A few days later, and bear in mind that time works different in the Dark Aether, but Zykov says, I have heard more rumours about a creature hunting the Elder God entities who battle for supremacy here. They say it is fairly new, not of the old ones who have fought to a stalemate since this realm was young. There is a particularly disturbing detail I keep hearing. They say it actually consumes those it defeats in combat, devouring them whole, and somehow it absorbs all of the dark power from its victim and adds it to its own. Some claim it gained its new abilities this way, such as the power to change its appearance, allowing it to stalk its prey disguised as someone they trust. I dismissed it as idle fantasy the first few times I heard it, but repetition has a way of giving credence to such claims. I have not seen it, but I now believe it is out there. And then a few hundred days later, Zykov says, I have learned more about the one who seeks to rule this land alone. I do not know why, after centuries of stalemate, this particular creature is suddenly ascendant. I am convinced that should it defeat its rivals, its bottomless appetite for power will not go away, so I must somehow find a way to stop it before it decides Mother Russia looks like a banquet. And then finally, a few weeks later, Zykov writes, I saw it, the Great Devourer, the Stealer of Souls, or, as many more of us have started to call it, the Forsaken. I was searching for machine parts further from my fort that I usually dare to travel. This was in territory once ruled by an old one who valued science and technology, so I hoped to find a trove of good components. Instead, I realised I was being stalked by some nameless horror too big for even my crucible and powered weapon. His crucible powered weapon of course is a pack-a-punch weapon, but he says, just as it cornered me, it seemed to sense something amiss, started to turn, and was suddenly in the clutches of the Forsaken. It was different than I had anticipated. In fact, it seemed to change appearance as it tore into the flesh of the thing that was hunting me. I ran. I do not think the Forsaken even noticed me, but it is very real. So as we learn from Zykov, because he is the most knowledgeable one of us all, he has witnessed the Forsaken for himself, he seems to think that the Forsaken is an Elder God. These Elder Gods have been trapped within the Dark Aether for eons. There has been a stalemate between them, but this particular Elder God is fairly new. He believes it is not one of the old ones who have been there since the Dark Aether was young. This particular Elder God began to fight against other Elder Gods, it defeated them, and every time it consumed one, it gained its powers and grew bigger. It became bigger and bigger with every Elder God it killed, until eventually it became so big and powerful that nothing could stop it. So the question is, could the one have eaten Dr. Monty? Monty was banished to the Dark Aether. One of Monty's powers was he could change his appearance. The one ate an Elder God that had this ability, so could it have been Dr. Monty that the one ate? Another thing we should look at is, well, since Zykov seems to think that the one is relatively new, the first time he starts to really speak about the one is after being trapped in the Dark Aether for 4,513 days. If we convert that to years, that's around 12 years in our time. Zykov became trapped in the Dark Aether in 1945. 12 years later would be 1957, and Dr. Monty was banished to the Dark Aether in Tagdertoten in 1965. But, like I said, time in the Dark Aether works differently. We don't know here when Zykov is writing down the days if he's referring to days in our world or days in his world. I'd imagine it's our world because, well, how would you record time in the Dark Aether? There is no sunlight, it is always dark, so what exactly is a day there? I guess if he has a watch, he can just count every day as 24 hours. But if time works differently, being either slower or faster, it's not really relative, so counting the days at this point, since we don't know the exact conversion, is pretty difficult to do. So just ignoring that, we know the Dark Aether has existed for eons. Dr. Monty came here in the 1960s. Zykov came here in the 40s. When he first arrived here, the one didn't exist. It only came to be a few years later, perhaps around the time when Monty arrived, which is kind of a little bit suspicious, making me think that Monty could have something to do with the Forsaken. We've only ever seen two different versions of Dr. Monty's form, his regular human self and then his Apothecon form. Either way, he's pretty small, and when we compare him to other Elder Gods, ones we've seen such as Order, or if we go back to our old timeline, these were Elder Gods, they are massive creatures. Dr. Monty wasn't, unless he could shapeshift into something that we hadn't seen, something massive. So it's a difficult question to answer, but Dr. Monty was a shapeshifter, the Forsaken ate an Elder God that was a shapeshifter. Could he have eaten Dr. Monty, or potentially the Shadow Man? There are also a few more radios and a document from Zykov I want to show you, so he also tells us this about the one.
Things were not always like this, my friend. I remember a time here in the Dark Aether when the Forsaken did not even exist. When I first crossed over, things were very different. And back then, there were many powerful entities at war here, forming alliances, betraying each other. Not that I realized it at first, any more than an insect would know the names of leaders in the Great Patriotic War. But eventually I came to recognize the lords of the Dark Aether. They had been locked in an ever-changing stalemate since the dawn of time. And then, one by one, the Forsaken hunted them down, consumed them, and made their power his own. The Forsaken imposed order upon the Dark Aether. Those who remained rallied to him, seeking his favor and pledging loyalty. This is a different place than when I arrived. It is infinitely more dangerous.
And in the final note we have from him, or I actually should say his latest note, otherwise that makes it sound like he's dead, which he might be. We suspect the Forsaken could be pretending to be Zykov, so this could actually be the Forsaken speaking to us right now, not Zykov. But anyway, he says here, the Old Ones are encountered less and less these days as the Forsaken continues its steady rise. The creature has grown to a size only rivaled by the crowds of followers that are drawn to it. I watch them from a distance, through an old telescope I restored. What I see has left me shaken. And then he just goes on about the Forsaken building an army, which we already know. So yeah, that is the best answer I can give you for that one. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And the final question of today, because I didn't expect the last one to be so long, is from Osland, and you say, BOA, do you think Treyarch might give us a little references to the old crew, whether it be an item prop or voice line? And well, if you take your minds back to before Cold War released, there was a bunch of leaks where 99% of everything in that thread turned out to be true. It told us about Mauer Toten, Firebase C, Speed Cola, but what was also included on that bunch of leaks was this. It said that Nikolai's glove was going to be on D Machine. Now, we've played D Machine, it's been out many months now. I think we can clearly say it isn't there. With any leak, things can always change, get cancelled, be delayed. In this case, I think this was cancelled, but Nikolai's glove was intended to be on D Machine. And well, even though it didn't happen, there is always the chance in the future we could see items from our characters, whether it be Primis, Ultimus, the Victor's characters, because the Dark Aether is still a part of the Cold War story. Let's say in the old storyline, Nikolai, when he went to Naktor and Toten, he lost his glove. Naktor and Toten was banished to the Dark Aether. We can actually go into the Dark Aether in Cold War, and even though it's a vast space, there is a chance we could find items from our characters. In terms of voice lines, I can't see that happening, although, again, on maps like Doris, we had radios from Maxis, or actually on every zombies map we've had radios, but if those maps were banished to the Dark Aether, that means those radios would have been as well, so we could find radios from characters. Yes, it's definitely possible. So the simple answer to that question is, do I think Treyarch would do it? Probably not, because we haven't seen anything so far, but we can always hope. So anyway guys, there we go, that is it, that is all I have for you for today's video. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, you know what to do, drop a like rating if you want to, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel, leave your questions down below, and as always I will see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.